Hey all, it's Nim, or Nimicry if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today, we're going to be talking about something just a little bit different. For those who know, I tend to do a lot of World of Warcraft stuff. Hell, I mean, right there's the Shadowlands image right there. But today, we're going to do something a little more enlightened. Something a little more political. We're going to be taking the political compass test. I'm going to take the answers, we'll read through it, I'll explain my reasoning, and we'll go from there. So if you ever wanted to know what motivates your favorite bartender, and odds are your favorite content creator, well, congratulations, today's your day. Before we get started, I do want to mention, guys, if you enjoy the video, like, comment, and of course, subscribe. Subscribe gives me a nice hit of dopamine and helps me throughout tough days. Without further ado, let's get on to it. Alright, so before taking the test, please note that this isn't a survey, and these aren't questions. These are propositions. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme, some are moderate. That's how we can show whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Some of them are intentionally vague. The purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudices, rather than detailed opinions on policy. Now, so I'm going to break that down. I'm going to read this as proscriptive as opposed to descriptive. Proscriptive, I wave my magic wand, boom, and the world is the way I think it should be. Whereas descriptive, I look at it, observe it through my glasses, and I see, the world. I like that part, I dislike that part. I'm neutral about these. So there you go. All right. Just a few propositions to start with concerning no less how I see the country and the world. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. Strongly agree. After all, corporations exist for humans. We made them. They should serve us. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Ooh, that's a strong disagree. Because, hey, here's the thing. What if my country brings back internment camps? Which they actually kind of have at the border. So, yeah, not happy with that. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I'm going to agree. Yeah, it's foolish to be proud of a country. Be proud of accomplishments, not of land. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree. Holy shit. Okay, so that was one of those extreme questions. People might have superior qualities. No one race has a monopoly on superior qualities. And if you disagree with that, you may want to examine your internal logic and motivations. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Disagree. The enemy of my enemy could be my friend. The enemy of my enemy could also be another enemy or an ally. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Disagree. Again, waving the magic wand, boom, and we have created a situation where it is never justified. We don't operate unilaterally. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. We're going to disagree with that. The reason I'm going to disagree with that is that, look, what I'm doing here is I'm informing, I'm entertaining, I'm explaining things. You need to have some showmanship, because otherwise if you just do dry resuscitation of the facts, and this is why that, Marx had an economic theory, and you write it on the board, it doesn't capture anyone's attention outside of the people who might already be interested in that. And very few people are interested in dry, policy-based lectures. You gotta have a little pizzazz. All right, next page. Now the economy. We're taking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. Oh, we're gonna agree with that. I have more in common with poor workers across the world than I do with the wealthy across the world. Even though technically, depending on how you measure it, I'm in the global 1%. I hate that phrase because I can't control the policies of the globe. I can only influence the policies of the country that I live in. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Agree. Unemployment numbers can be manipulated any number of ways. Look at the U6 unemployment number versus the current stated unemployment numbers to see the disparity and see how they mess with the statistics. Also, inflation affects the buying power of your dollar. So let's say, hypothetically, you're unemployed and you're receiving SNAP and TAMP, temporary assistance for needy families, WIC, and a few other things. With inflation, your dollar goes less. Doesn't go quite as far. So inflation is way more important. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. We've seen it. We know it. It's there. Energy companies. You guys remember Deepwater Horizon? It was so bad that Mark Wahlberg made a movie about it. And he's known to make movies that are both disasters and about disaster. So there we go. But yes, corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment. In fact, they will come up with scientists and studies in order to, let's talk about the controversy. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is fundamentally a good idea. I'm going to agree with that. I just think it's a good idea. The freer the market, the freer the people. Strongly disagree. Like evidence of this? Singapore. In Singapore, you can buy all the consumer goods you want, all the capitalist indulgences that you want. But if you criticize the government, they insist you come with them. They've got some fun things to show you. Now, speaking of capitalism, Patreon.com/Nimicry. I'm going to enjoy some whiskey while people decide to visit my Patreon, which is Patreon.com/Nimicry. It's a hard world out there. If I was more true to my socialist roots, this would be vodka. But I believe in intersectional drinking. It is a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly agree. Yes, it is. That is absolutely a sad reflection, because that is a human need. You can be as stoic and self-sacrificing and bootstrappy as you want. If you don't get water, you die. So if it's not available for free, some people are going to be excluded from it. Now, I'm not mad at having fancy bottled water as long as there's a public option. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Agree. Ooh, magic wand time. Boop. It shouldn't be. Land shouldn't be. We should have housing should be taken care of. In fact, I'm a big fan of the Vienna project, Red Vienna, where there was social housing. Very nice, high quality homes. People pay the city a very low percentage of their income as rent. And it's just for upkeep, and everyone pitches in. It's great. Do that. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Strongly agree. I have a question for you, dear viewer. If the financial services industry shuts down like that, how is your life impacted? Now, if you were, let's say, a mortgage banker or a broker, or let's say you were an investment banker for some reason watching this, one, welcome. I don't normally have people of your ilk in my videos and comment sections, which please leave a comment there. But two, if you're not those financial services employees, you're not going to notice anything different because nothing is created. In fact, wealth is extracted. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Agree. Sometimes protectionism is necessary. Sometimes we have to put our economic needs first. And all countries do that. They do it via tariffs. They do it via trade negotiations. Yeah, protectionism is sometimes necessary. Now, you can argue, what level of protectionism is necessary, but I believe it sometimes is necessary. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profit to its shareholders. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver profit to its shareholders in a sustainable way. Sustainable, in this case, being defined as good for the environment and good for the employees. Because if you sacrifice your employees for first quarter gains, your company isn't existing in the second quarter. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. We have billionaires and homeless people and people who starve to death. You solve those last two, we can revisit the too highly taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Disagree. Everyone should have the same access to the same quality of medical care. After all, we are only as healthy as the sickest member of our society. So if you want a healthier society, then you better make sure every doctor is incentivized to be as good as possible. It should be a noble profession, as I think it already is a very respectable profession, but let's elevate it to a nobility. And I don't mean nobility in the sense of, like, oh, they're actual sirs and lords and things. I mean, let's give it some more public acclaim. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. The government is the only thing that can protect you from business. Now, you may say, but Nim, what if we organize? What if we decide to, not buy anything? Congratulations, you encountered a monopoly. And if you think you haven't encountered a monopoly, I'd like you to go take a look and see how many internet service providers your area has. Because if you're in America, it's probably one. And then you have some pissant thing there, but that's not really competition. Because their service is nowhere near as fast. So yeah. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Strongly agree. How can I have a free market when someone can just go be like, hey, look at this wallet. Bap, threw it on the table. Now I own everything. And now I can set the prices. You absolutely have to be able to regulate predator multinationals. And in fact, the fact that they describe them as predator multinationals means that they're not engaging in what I would say fair capitalism, as fair as capitalism can be. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Abortion should be whenever the woman wants it. That's just because I can't get pregnant. I'm a dude. Like, I'm a cis-het male. I cannot get pregnant. I can only cause pregnancy, or with a partner, cause pregnancy more accurately. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. If you are an authority on a subject, you should be able to defend your position against the attacks of laymen through discussion, debate, or any other method that isn't physical violence. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Strongly disagree. Now, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is an example of retributive justice. Problem with retributive justice is that it creates cycles of violence. I hurt somebody, and there in turn I'm hurt, and then in turn my family wants to take vengeance. We've progressed as a society beyond the need for that. Now, is there still the impulse for vengeance? Of course. But we as a society, as people, should be like, hey, we can do better. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Disagree. Not all museums are profitable. Not all education is profitable. Not all art is profitable. Yet we still subsidize it. Also, it's funny they mention theaters and museums that can't survive on a commercial basis, because this past year, for those, unless you're in a coma, we had the COVID crisis. Even profitable businesses needed help to get along, let alone things with foundations and museums. So yeah, no. Taxpayers should be expected to have a reasonable amount of help towards arts and sciences and culture. And you can then decide the details from there, but there should be a reasonable expectation. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Strongly disagree. Oh my God. Okay, so imagine with me. Let's say they implemented that it was actually schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Then the people who need to work in order to provide for their families or help provide for their families will not attend class. Thus, they will not receive an education. Thus, they will not get skills and be able to possibly advance in life outside of menial labor. Now listen, reskilling is not a guarantee that there's going to be a job. I know that. But not having the skills means that if there's a job, you're not even qualified for it. So yes, schools absolutely need to keep classroom attendance compulsory. All people have their rights, but it's better for all that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Holy shit, another one. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. Listen, diversity is our strength, right? Diversity gives us a variety of different experiences and a variety of different perspectives. Those perspectives can solve problems, sometimes way more efficiently than what we would do. Hypothetically, let's say that the only way we were ever able to do something was if we first crawled on our hands and knees through broken glass. And then someone one day was like, wait a minute, we do the same tasks back where I come from, but we sweep up the glass first. And we put on shoes and we walk. Some people may say, well, that's intellectual and process heresy. Other people may be more open and be like, give it a try and see what happens. After all, my elbows and knees are kind of tired of getting cut up. God, I've got a lot of scars there. And then they do it. It's like, oh, wow, this was much easier. So yeah, without that other perspective, you'd have kept crawling on your knees through hands and glass. Or through crawling hands and knees through glass. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Disagree. I was spanked as a child, and it taught me to fear my father. It taught me that violence is how I solve a problem. And sometimes violence is necessary to solve problems. I agree. If someone's trying to put their hands on you and you need to push them away and you need to get them away or they keep aggressing, sometimes violence is the answer. But you're dealing with children. You're telling me that you, as a grown adult, can't come up with a better solution than striking the child. Really? You're going to let a child outsmart you? Because the child could come up with hundreds of ways to annoy you or to cause a problem, and you as an adult can't outsmart a child. Can't recontextualize things. Okay, sure. If you agree with that, that's there. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Agree. Here's the thing. All people have secrets. If the child is afraid to tell you the secrets, they're still going to have secrets. They're just not going to tell you. I have an adopted daughter, or pseudo-adopted, but still, she is of the utmost importance to me. And I strive to create a relationship where she can tell me anything. And I check in with her, like, hey, you doing okay? Talk to me, everything good? From time to time, I'll just take time out of my day to be like, hey, you doing all right? And she'll usually say, yeah, Dad, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm just watching TV, or I'm just doing this, or I'm doing homework or something. And the answer is that I want her to come to me if she has a problem, if there's a secret, if she feels that she can divulge it. Because letting it fester often creates more problems. And if she was afraid to talk to me about her secrets, then it's definitely going to fester, and it's going to take on the worst aspect that it possibly could in some cases. And sometimes, certain secrets need to be addressed right now. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. Now, the reason I strongly agree there is, listen, I don't use marijuana, but I treat marijuana like I would whiskey. You saw I had a little whiskey earlier in the video. Just don't drive on it. Don't operate heavy machine. Treat it the same like you would a DUI. The prime function of schooling should be to equip future generation to find jobs. Disagree. Now, the reason I disagree there is because the primary function of schooling should be to educate and create well-rounded individuals. Because well-rounded individuals have enough life experience, knowledge, and perspective to decide what they actually want to do. Now, some people may say, but Nim, it's not profitable to go study all the humanities. It's profitable to go into STEM, except that when everyone goes into STEM, then you have a glut of STEM practitioners, and thus the wages fall. So no, it should be the primary function of schooling should be education and creating a well-rounded individual. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Okay, a third one. Jesus, they weren't kidding when they said some of these were extreme. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. That's eugenics. Eugenics is a bad thing. No. The most important thing for children to learn to accept is, or the most important thing children learn is to accept discipline. Strongly disagree. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept disappointment and how to adjust and move on from that. We've all met people who haven't learned how to handle disappointment in their life. There are no savage or civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. Agree. It is highly hubristic, full of hubris, to call somebody a savage or say they're from a savage culture. Now, are there cultural practices in certain cultures that I don't agree with? Yes. Yes, there are. There are some that I think are barbaric. But I'm not going to call the people a savage. I'm going to disagree with that individual practice. Because to call someone a savage, in this case, is essentially calling them a barbarian, a Philistine. It's a very negative connotation, and it paints with an extremely broad brush. I want to share you guys something before we continue. When I was 12, I live in Ohio, and you have to be 12 to decide which parent you're going to live with. This speaks to more personal culture, or family culture. I spent all day at the courthouse, up until about 1 p.m. My mother gave me a $100 bill and another $10 bill. And she dropped me off at a Borders bookstore, said the $100 bills was for books, the $10 bill was for lunch. Call me when she's done. And I had this big, the big old Nokia phone with the knob antenna that was like a brick. If you were being attacked, you could beat somebody with it and then call the police and be like, "Officer, I'm fine. I hit him with a Nokia." And they'll be like, "All right, we're on our way." And then she left. She left Borders. And for the first time in my life, I was allowed unfettered access to knowledge. And I went and I bought a book on Eastern philosophy, a comic book, a D&D book, and some other miscellaneous knickknacks, and I think I got a couple packs of Magic cards, too, to round everything out. Then I went to Taco Bell across the way and had 2 quesadillas and a Mountain Dew. I remember eating and reading and eating and reading and eating and reading. And I called my mother, and it was amazing. It's the first time in my life I was able to have this full, I can know anything. And that was part of the culture I was raised in. Just as a personal narrative. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Disagree. We shouldn't let people starve in the streets. I'm not saying you're going to live high on the hog, but I'm not going to let you starve to death. I am going to encourage you to work and see if we can't find better work for you. But I'm not going to let you starve to death. When you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Agree. I agree. That's what I do. When I'm dealing with a lot of stuff, I try to focus on tasks and try to mentally put myself in a positive mood, and then my subconscious will process, and eventually I'll process it out and come to a conclusion that I need. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree. I have personal friends who came from Romania that are all American. Like, they are all about America. It is insane. And the father came from the former Soviet Union. So yeah, they're all about America. Every day, like as many cultural signifiers of American culture as you can. He's got the big truck, doctor, eats burgers. They still have their own cultural practices too. They make a lovely pork soup. I haven't had it in years, but that's neither here nor there. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Strongly disagree. Because Nestle believes that water is not a human right. I believe water is a human right. This is prescriptive, magic wand, boom, water is a human right. Now, you're dying of thirst and you lost your wallet. Who do you want in charge of policy? Somebody like me or Nestle? Leave your answer in the comments below. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Disagree. Public funding comes in many forms. You can have a student tax credit, where we hire interns from local colleges who are in audio-video production majors. And you get a tax credit. That is receiving public funding, albeit instead of receiving direct payment, you can not give a payment and thus have, a rebate on taxes or something like that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they can, I disagree with that. They can receive public funding. Now, the amount, of course, is always up for debate, but this is propositional, not specific. Okay, and how we see the wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. Strongly agree. Man, that Fourth Amendment. Boy, miss you, Fourth Amendment. Wish we had you. That unreasonable search and seizure. Boy, I wish we had more stronger that. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Disagree. Because one party means one perspective. One perspective means you may be crawling on your hands and knees through glass when there's an easier way. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Disagree. Strongly. And the reason I strongly disagree with that is that if you don't have a justification to spy on me, why are you doing it? Again, Fourth Amendment, are the civil liberties being excessively curved? And while I'm sure they've caught criminals, you've also seen things that you didn't have a right to see, you didn't have permission to see. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious of crimes. Strongly disagree. The death penalty sometimes kills innocent people. I believe the latest numbers I am aware of is 1 in 25, or 4%. Assisted suicide should be an option for the most serious crimes. Magic wand, wave. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. Strongly disagree? Just because you are an authority or an expert in one topic doesn't mean you should be listened to in all topic. Gordon Ramsay, for example, probably makes a great steak. I'm willing to bet that if he made me a steak, it would be the greatest steak that I have ever eaten. You know, and my wife loves Gordon Ramsay, so she would probably be like, "That's fine to say." My wife makes a great steak. I just want to mention that. She got me a steak, and I'm hungry now. Anyways, just because Gordon Ramsay can make a steak supremely well doesn't mean that I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Gordon, listen, I know you're in charge of this. You're in charge, and we need to listen to. What do you think about the power line? Are they sagging too much?" He's gonna be like, "What do I know about power line?" So yeah, no. And also, this doesn't take into account anarchist societies where people are equal and they just help each other. And there have been anarchist societies. Those happened in Spain during the Civil War. A few other places. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. Art is self-determined. Abstract art is just as valid as any other art. It may not be easy to understand, but that might be the point. You have to define it for yourself. You have to think, what does this mean? What does this represent? In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. For those outside of the United States, if you're watching this, I live in the United States. We have the highest recidivism rate in the world. We have the most prisoners in the world. We have draconian institutions and a system set up that once you're out of prison, you are set up for failure. I think rehabilitation should be primarily. Now, some people obviously can't be rehabilitated. You may have a mass murderer or a psychopath or something like that, and then you should make the punishment as harsh, only as harsh as it needs to be. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I'll agree with that. As previously mentioned, some people cannot be rehabilitated. Most people, the lion's share of people, can. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I'm going to disagree with that. I think they're of equal importance. The manufacturer makes, the business person works with money, the writer and the artist define greater cultures and may answer as to the why. Because if my whole society is just producing clear plastic cases, the writer and the artist may find greater meaning in that, which is ultimately will create more satisfaction in my life, while the business person sells it and the manufacturer makes it. That was a hard question for me, and I'm going to be honest, because the engineer side of me and the creative side of me are fight on that one. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. Mothers may have careers, and their first duty is to do whatever they want. Right? Anybody who wants to take the role of mother can do whatever they want. Now, some people may say, well, what if they decide to neglect the child? bad mother, don't neglect the child. But here's the thing. If your first duty is a homemaker and you're the only source of income, as some cases are, how is your child going to live? You gotta work. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Agree! In fact, there was a problem with over-fertilized soil. There's too much nitrogen in the soil, and there's been some less than stellar crop yields because they would pump nitrogen in the soil in order to try to increase crop yield. And that happened with, I believe happening down in Cameroon last time I read about that. It was a couple of years ago. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Disagree. Understanding that there is an establishment and that you won't always agree with it, or that it can sometimes be wrong, is an important aspect of maturity. But making peace with it, no. Picking your battles is an important aspect of maturity. I don't agree, for example, with the treatment of Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. I think they should be pardoned, just as the Pentagon Papers author was. But if I spend all my time fighting that battle, I'm not getting anything else done. I'm not taking care of my house. I'm not working. I'm not taking care of my wife. I'm not doing anything. So, again, I've made peace with that particular fight, but not the establishment as a whole. Got through that, okay? You'll find these propositions on religion of breeze. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree. I don't know if it's the House of Mercury and retrograde or whatever, but no. Astrology explains nothing. It's kind of like me taking the dice. Dice, tell me the magic thing. I got 11. What does 11 mean? I don't know. But there it is. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. I'm an atheist, and I tend to think that I'm fairly moral. But then again, people may say I'm not. My actions will speak for me. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Oh boy, that's a disagreement. We actually have numbers on that one. If you look up the stats, you can find that the poverty rate of senior citizens a generation after Social Security was implemented, senior poverty plummeted. Some people are naturally unlucky. Agree. Some people are born naturally lucky. So the corollary makes sense. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree. It is important that my child's school creates a well-rounded individual, combined with education at home and personal life experience. That's what's important to me. Religion can be picked up at one's leisure. Finally, a look at sex. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. Sex outside of consent is absolutely immoral. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. It's said from social sciences that the best way to give a child success in life is to have two parents, two people involved in the child raising, whether that be mother-father, father-father, mother-mother, non-binary and non-binary, or non-binary and any other type of thing. Two caring individuals will provide optimum success chance for the child. And there's that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Why does that mean? Because that means there's more caretakers watching out for the kid, making sure, hey, yo, get out of the street, don't be there. Or, given perspective. Yeah, well, back here, and this is how this used to be, and given more knowledge and experience. So, yes, I don't believe that a same-sex couple should be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Strongly agree. You don't show it to kids. It's for adults, and the adults in it are consenting. Yeah, no problem. What goes on in the private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. Again, that magic word is consent. That's what it is. These people decided, okay, we're going to get involved with this. Somebody's getting in the swing. Somebody's got the leather face mask. They've consented to this. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. I've met people all throughout my life that are part of the LGBTQIA+ community. From years and years ago, all the way to now, and even in the future I'll meet people. And to them, it may take some people a while to figure out where they are and where they stand, because these questions are complicated and society has certain expectations. Now, society is getting better, but once they hit where they're comfortable, it's natural. They feel comfortable in their own skin, so to speak. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly disagree. An example. When I was going through health class, consent was not talked about. When I was going through health class, and I was in Ohio, they didn't cover safe sex practices. It was abstinence only. The thing is that teaching children abstinence only doesn't prevent them from having sex. It prevents them from having safe sex. Same thing with adults, if you're uneducated on that topic. So the fact that there are more people talking about, well, these are the risk factors that happen with sex, or if you're feeling pressured and you don't want to, it's okay to say no. In fact, you're supposed to be comfortable with this. It's supposed to be enjoyable for both parties. So if you're not interested in it, say no, and that person should respect your boundaries. That's very good, and I think it's important. Now let's see where I stand. So about the political compass, in the introduction, we explain the inadequacies of the traditional left-right line. If we recognize that this is essentially an economic line as far as it goes, we can show that, for example, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and Pol Pot, with their commitment to totally controlled economies on the hard left, socialists like Mahatma Gandhi and Robert Mugabe would occupy a less extreme leftist position. Margaret Thatcher would be well over to the right, but further right still would be someone like the ultimate free marketeer, General Augusto Pinochet. That deals with economics, but the social dimension is also important in politics. That's the one that mere left-right scale doesn't adequately address, so we've added one ranging in positions from extreme authoritarianism to extreme libertarian. Both an economic dimension and a social dimension are important factors for a proper political analysis. By adding the social dimension, you can show that Stalin was an authoritarian leftist, i.e. the state is more important than the individual, and that Gandhi, believing in the supreme value of each individual, is a liberal leftist. While the former involves state-opposed arbitrary collectivism in the extreme top left, on the extreme bottom left, voluntary collectivism at a regional level with no state involved. Hundreds of such anarchist communities existed during Spain during the Civil War period. You can also put Pinochet, who was prepared to sanction mass killing for the sake of the free market, on the far right, as well as hardcore authoritarian position. On the non-socialist side, you can distinguish someone like Milton Friedman, who was anti-state for fiscal rather than social reasons, from Hitler, who wanted to make the state stronger, even if he wiped out half of humanity in the process. The chart also makes clear that despite popular perceptions, the opposition of fascism is not communism, but anarchism, i.e. liberal socialism. And the opposite of communism, in an entirely state-planned economy, is neoliberalism, the extreme, deregulated economy. So we see here just some examples. We see Stalin in the upper left quadrant, very authoritarian left. Hitler, very authoritarian, but almost center-right economically. Thatcher being very authoritarian right. Friedman being very right libertarian. And Gandhi being liberal left, or left libertarian. The usual understanding of anarchism is as a left-wing ideology does not take into account the neoliberal anarchism championed by the likes of Ayn Rand, Milton Friedman, and America's Libertarian Party, which couples social Darwinian right-wing economics with liberal positions on most social issues. Often, their libertarian impulses stop short of opposition to strong law and order positions, and are more economic in substance, i.e. no taxes, or think taxation is theft. So as they're not extremely libertarian, as they are extremely right-wing. On the other hand, the classical libertarian collectivism of anarcho-syndicalism, libertarian socialism, belongs in the bottom left-hand corner. On the homepage, we demolish the myth that authoritarianism is necessarily right-wing, for the examples of Robert Mugabe, Pol Pot, and Stalin. Of course, Mao Zedong as well. Similarly, Hitler, on the economic scale, was not an extreme right-winger. His economic policies were broadly Keynesian, and to the left of some of today's labor parties. If you could get Hitler and Stalin to sit down together and avoid economics, the two diehard authoritarians would find plenty of common ground, after they tried to kill each other. A word about neocons and neolibs. Here we are. U.S. conservatives, with their commitment to high military spending and global assertion of national values, tend to be more authoritarian than hard right. By contrast, neoliberals, opposed to such moral leadership, and more especially the ensuing demands of the taxpayer, belong to the further right, but less authoritarian region. Paradoxically, the free market, in the neocon parlance, allows for large-scale subsidy of the military-industrial complex, a considerable degree of corporate welfare, and protectionism, when deemed in the national interest. These are viewed by neolibs as impediments, the unfettered market forces that they champion. So, my political compass, where did I end up? Where's Nim in this grand scale of things? And again, this is a starting point, not the end-all, be-all. So if we look here, we see that I am economic left. Looks like I am negative 7.75, so I'm pretty far left. Some of my detractors on Twitch, which will say that they'll think I'm all the way over here, and I'm not. And then, of course, social, libertarian, authoritarian, I am at negative 6.72, so I'm pretty libertarian left. And that makes sense, because I want people to have the socialist or leftist policies that are important, like universal education, universal health care, child care, housing, things like that. But I also don't want people to be forced into that. So if they want to go about it a hard way, if they want to engage with a capitalist economy, then okay, that's you. You do you. All right, guys, so that was the political compass test. You guys now know where one of your favorite content creators stand. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment, a like, and of course subscribe, as the dopamine gets me through very hard days. I have hard days from time to time. On screen right now, you might see some names scrolling by. Those are my patrons. If you'd like to join that collection of illustrious individuals, you can at patreon.com/Nimicry. Also, you can follow the Twitch at twitch.tv/Nimicry. I do live broadcasts 4 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Oh, and I sometimes do a bonus on Sunday. Also, you can follow my Twitter at Nimicry. It's where I post the most things. Links to all that will be down in the description, as well as a link to my personal Discord. If you'd like to chat and hang out. Other than that, of course, guys, thank you for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.